Hello, bonjour. I hope you all can hear me okay. I'm going to read and go through something that I wrote. I'd like to do this live, but I can't seem to get my timing right with other lives and whatnot, so I'm going to pre-record because then I am still doing it. I'm still putting it out there, and maybe I can stream this live, and then you guys can kind of comment, and I can go through the comments. I guess that's how that works. Um, anyways, okay. Something I wrote, it's a bit long, might be easier to take in through audio than through reading it all for some. I know for me, I need audio. That's funny. I'm good with words. I can write like crazy. I have a hard time reading because my brain goes all over the place. So anyways, do you believe you are loved by Source? If you truly believe it, what would you do right now? I want you to truly just ask that question even. Think of a place that you feel turmoil or stuck or that you're frustrated with, and then ask yourself this question. If you truly believed you were loved by Source, what decision would you make? Maybe you wouldn't make a decision that you're about to make. Maybe you'd make a different decision if you truly trusted Source. It's a very good question, and possibly one to even put on your mirror. I want to go deep into your soul and transform you. That is what Source did for me. It was definitely my dark night of the soul at that time. I went into darkness knowing there was light, and I didn't stop until I found it. I forgave the unforgivable that broke me and dove into the most broken and scared parts of my soul, seeking answers or seeking death. I just needed relief. And sometimes that's the point we come to. It's like we stick something out so hard that we realize that I either need to get out of this or I just don't even want to live anymore because it's too hard to stay in. And sometimes when it feels like it's too hard to stay in, too hard to get out, too hard to anything, it does feel that way. Like it does feel like you're gonna die. And you have to choose between you and that situation and getting out of it for your very life. Alright. After that experience, though, which I don't really go into here, it was big, though. I had an amazing experience with Source, and nothing will change my mind on the fact that Source is love. God loves us. God sees our highest self. And when we are on the other side, we see those who are here as highest selves also. We choose the highest selves in others to be a part of our experience for our expansion. That is a whole topic on its own. I do believe we choose each other. I do believe we choose our parents. And coming from somebody who was born into sexual abuse, that's a pretty big thing for me to say. No, I don't believe in karma. I do believe that Source only sees our highest selves. I mean, we can resist our highest selves. We can resist Source. We can resist seeing answers through Source's eyes, seeing anything through Source's eyes, because Source's eyes are love. We can look at problems, but Source is looking at the answers. We could be over here looking at the problems and focusing on the problems and complaining about the problems and trying to figure out the problems, and completely missing Source, who is over here looking at the answers, excited for the answers, knowing the answers. Just waiting for you to release all of this so that you can see this. And we can look at somebody and hate on them, not like them, blah, blah, blah. And that's through our eyes. And often we'll resist looking through Source's eyes because it would mean we would have to have compassion, because we'd have to see them as Source sees them. And Source sees them. Source loves them, and Source sees their highest self, even when they're not acting from it, even when they're not being it. That's what Source sees. That's what Source calls out. That's what Source knows. And that's why Source is never afraid. When we're angry, when we're upset, a lot of that comes from fear. It sounds a little strange, but it does. Okay. So God loves us. God sees our highest self. And when we are on the other side, we see those who are here's highest self also. So when I chose my parents, I saw their highest selves. I saw the highest self in them and how that can advance and expand my journey, my goal, my expansions that I want to grow in coming here. Now, I'm also aware that this is a dual place, a duality, and that people have free will, and that changes a lot. And so I need to come here knowing that yes, this is this person's highest self that I see as part of Source on that other side, because we're pure energy. We're not in any of the flesh. And I also come knowing that here there's free will in contrast, and that that person will always have a free will to choose their highest self or to not. And so will I. And so, but even in that, that person is either being their highest self or resisting their highest self. And in both forms, whichever they choose, I can still have the opportunity to learn the lesson I want. Whether I gain wisdom through not wanting to be what they're being, if they're being something nasty, or I gain the wisdom through witnessing them being what they should be, their highest self. And either way, I can gain a lesson from it. I can gain a lesson of like knowing who they are and watching them not live or act out of who they are, and want to do that differently, wanting to be what I know, or be the opposite. So like, say you grow up with a lot of people with addictions, you may very well choose that you never ever want to touch anything addictive after witnessing what it has done to those people. And you can, I'm just saying, you can grow either way, no matter which way a person chooses to live, from their higher self or not. And so we come here knowing that. We come here knowing that we can see amazing people because we are seeing through our Source's eyes when we are on the other side. And that those people may not choose that part of them when we come. And we also know that we have that choice too, and that's part of coming here for the human experience. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense on some level. This is why I wish I was doing it live, because then if there's more questions, sometimes that expands what I have inside to say about it, and that's always fun interacting like that. Okay. Yes, we choose the highest selves in others to be a part of our experience for our expansion. We also come knowing that free will is here, and that at any time someone can choose their highest self or resist it. We understand that we can have either experience of their choices and our own, but that either way it can lead us to the expansion we came for by our own choice and experiences. Our world experience is complicated, but necessary for expansion in all that we have put into our desires to become. And the whole of creation is crying out. Everything that is out of alignment is a cry for alignment, is a cry for love, it's a cry for understanding, because the only reason it feels shitty is because we know something's not right, right? And we're all striving for that expansion into what is right, what is alignment. Okay. Love and fear choices, conscious and unconscious. But once we know source is love and not to be feared, we have to become conscious. Conscious. Yeah. So I ask you again, do you believe God is love? Do you believe God loves you? So why do we have to become conscious once we realize God is love? So I strongly believe that we reflect the God that we believe in. And it's very true. Like, that might sound crazy, but a lot of people don't even know what love is, which is God. God is love, God is truth, right? But even here, we're taught such a skewed version of love. It's not, God's love is not conditional. It's not what religion teaches us. It's not what movies teach us. Yeah, so even like in any religion, but I'm going to speak from Christianity because I used to be in there a lot. Grew up in there, got out eventually after studying my ass off. But there are some beautiful people in Christianity who believe God is unconditional love, who you can see that power of that belief flowing through them in healing others and doing amazing things. And then you see those Christians who believe God is like just pissed off and, wants to be friends with you and love you, but you're an idiot who won't conform to their religion. So, all the punishment you get, you deserve. You get extremes at both ends, and they both believe in very different gods within the same religion. But I mean, there's like, I don't even remember how many thousands and thousands of versions of Christianity, and none of them agree. So, you really gotta just, like anything, like color, like religion, like anything at all, you gotta judge a person by the person and nothing else. Yeah. And honestly, we're all from source. And when you dig deep enough with anybody and go back to their heart, something in them doesn't even believe what they believe. That's not in alignment with source being nothing but pure love. If you really dig, like, that was one thing that really sent me on my adventure, was that I lost a lot of family members. And I was always told, they lived a life where they're going to the bad place. And that wasn't my experience, though. I started having dreams of them in heaven, of them happy, messages, things like that, which I know was taboo for the church. But it is what I experienced, and it was really beautiful, and messages that I couldn't have conjured up myself. And I started wondering, started thinking, I'm like, well, that's not what I've been taught. And also wondering, it's like, okay, if I can see all the horrible things that that my family has gone through, that has led them to do the things they do and be the way that they are, just to survive this world. Like, say they were severely abused and They just drank like a fish and then became abusive to their family, and they couldn't cope, and they just had these traumas that just took them over, and they didn't have tools, they didn't have knowledge like we had. Like, they also had traditions that were pretty harmful, in especially in the female male roles and things like that. An example would be that my grandpa was adopted pretty much in slavery and was brought to work on a farm and beaten almost daily. And he grew up and drank and was abusive and did some horrible things. And I just look at situations like this and I think to myself, after all that person's been through, even though they've done horrible things, why? Why would I say, hey, as a god? Why would I be like, hey, welcome to Earth. Here's your fucked up serving of life. You're going to be fucked up for the rest of your life. You're not going to make it through very well here. And then after all that's done, I'm going to continue to punish you for eternity. Way worse than this. Once you're ready to die and leave this hell that you're already in on this earth. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, as a kid, I watch stuff like this and I'm like, all I want them to know is that they're loved. All I want them to know is how amazing they are. All I want is, like, as a kid, you think these things, and because you're more in alignment with Source. And as an adult, I was like, thinking to myself, do I have more love than God? Do I have more grace than God? Do I have more mercy than God? Like, how does that even make sense? This God that I hear about that is so loving and I've experienced the love of within the religion as well. But then there's always this roller coaster of fear at the same time. Like, did I screw up? Am I faithful enough? Am I like brave enough for God? Did I recruit enough people into our religion? Did I get enough people saved? Like, is he happy with me? Is he disappointed with me? Is he gonna teach me a lesson? Like, you've taught so many confusing things within religion, and when that's why I say, when you have a true awakening of the unconditional love of God that kind of bumps up against all your beliefs, against everything you've ever been taught and programmed in by society, by religion, by whatever. It's like you when you have that awakening, you have to become conscious. Like, it changes your whole world. And how much fear does it get rid of? To know that, like, God's not afraid of anything. God will use anything to try and reach a person with the message that he is pure love. Just like he utilized what Jesus knew that made him an open vessel for God to work through. And of course, Jesus used the language and understanding of that time to portray a message to a certain culture and a certain people in a certain time, right? And we have to put that in context so we know what he was talking about. And that knowing that we were supposed to continue to expand, that we were supposed to continue to do even more than he did, he said. And so we're supposed to continue to expand in this awakening, in this unveiling, in this knowing of God, that really he's not all the things that religious teachers tell us, but he is love. He is love. And we're ready for that message now. They were ready for it at the capacity that they were in their time and understanding. And now we're ready to understand so much more. And yet we stay stuck in confusing messages that weren't for our time. Um, I mean, everything is always applicable. There is a cycle within everything that repeats that we can learn from, right? Someone hits me, it hurts. I can learn from it. And that's still a valuable lesson in the future. But the cycle was that there was people who believed a certain thing about God. And because of their fear of God, like, okay, we're going to go into this. So God wanted them to come up on the mountain and be priests and kings and have an intimate one-on-one relationship with Him. You know what they did? Oh my gosh, if we go near that mountain, we will surely die. What did they say? Moses, you go up and just get the rules and tell us what we're supposed to do, and we'll do it that way instead, because we're scared. So was it God who wanted that? Or did they choose that? They chose that. They chose that. And then they had a belief that you had to sacrifice to be okay with God. And so every new religion that was established in that time usually started off with some crazy sacrifice, including sacrificing your firstborns, which Abraham went to do. And because God wanted to show him something different. And God did show him something different. So that was God meeting them where they were at in their beliefs, trying to show them something new. And then that person trying to convey that new message to people who also believe something different. And it's like this big battle all the way, God trying to reveal himself. And I mean, when they came out of Egypt, they believed that there was like thousands of gods. And so one of the very first things God had to teach these people that came out was that he was just one God. There was just one God. And so, I mean, and as soon as he takes off to the mountains to go get their rules that they wanted, what do? They like freak out and, oh my gosh, he's gone for a long time. Let's build another God. So they built like a golden calf and start worshiping and doing all these old rituals that were awful. And then he comes back and he's like, what are you doing? You guys have like zero faith. Like, yeah, it's pretty awful. And so he lays down the rules. And then he didn't want human sacrifices anymore. But these people believed they still needed a sacrifice. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna like, we'll sacrifice lambs. And everybody as part of the system is going to give a portion of their abundance to support the system. And really, they tell them that it's to gain favor with God, but it's, it's a supportive religious system that eventually got more and more selfish. And it got so bad to the point where Jesus had to come in and intercede and again show them something new. And that newness was, oh, the religious say that you're sick because you're a sinner. Well, I say, which is a fear of God, well, I say just get up and walk, be healed. And people were like, what the what? And the religious leaders freaking hated him. And all he did was nail them with their own scriptures over and over and over to try and prove a point, right? He told them that they were the sons of the devil. And the devil, in my understanding, is the religious system. The religious system that enslaves people, that makes them afraid, especially of God. The Antichrist is the anti-God. The anti-God is love, right? It's where people preach things to make you afraid of God and say you need to do things for God to get his favor, but really the only people it benefits is the religious leaders. Yeah, because like Jesus said, God doesn't need your sacrifices. God never wanted your sacrifices. He literally said in the Bible. So what does that tell you? Who wanted them? Yeah. Same with the, like, giving the 10%, all that kind of stuff. Maybe we could look at that as a way of, like, systems for, like, managing group things like road care, blah, 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 shared things that everybody shares, whatever. I don't know. But Jesus certainly didn't seem to like it and didn't seem to think like we had to worry about it, that God would provide. But one thing he definitely wanted us to not do was fear. Was fear that if we made a mistake, God didn't love us anymore. That if we didn't give even when we didn't have, God wouldn't love us anymore. So Jesus came in their time with a message in their language and understanding, that God was even more than what they thought. And that's an amazing thing to think about. And everything he predicted came true in their time. He was talking to them. He looked in their faces and said, don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and your children. When he first said, the time is near, he meant the time was near. He was speaking to those people in that time. And everything worked out perfectly on the timeline as Jesus predicted, and they were destroyed because of their stubbornness by Rome in 70 AD. And that just, everything lines up when it's not taught through the skewed Western teachings of the Bible. Yeah. So, and to keep in mind that, a lot of this stuff probably came out from the Romans, and one of the Roman traditions in history was that they would actually pray to the god, if they were going to conquer a land, a people, and they had a god. What they would do is the Romans would pray to that god before attacking and destroying them or taking them over or whatever for the god's favor, and they would promise that god, that they would be happier with them and that they would worship them and honor them and all that stuff. And so they wind up having a lot of gods in Rome and traditions for those gods. And why was Jesus any different? The Jews were destroyed because of their stubbornness, and they did burn in a fiery pit that burned around the city, which was the garbage dump called Gehenna, where they threw their garbage and dead bodies. And that's all Jesus was referring to as the fire that never ends, where the worm never dies. It's in the garbage dump. And that's where they'd be going if they kept up with their stubbornness and over moving into the expansion of what God was doing and revealing to the people. And those who believed Jesus were saved, because if you believed him, you held on and you got out when you saw the signs that he warned them about. And they did. They got out when they saw the signs, when they saw the surrounding, when they, all the things he warned about. That they understand as apocalyptic language in their time. They often wrote in something called apocalyptic language. It was very dramatic. There's examples of it throughout the Bible, but for some reason we like to take this one and say, oh, it's different. So like when Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, they used apocalyptic language, and it was just poetic, theatrical language to express that the destruction and end of something was coming, And they used words even in that destruction as burning forever and ever and all this kind of stuff, but it didn't. End was mentioned later, and you could go visit it today. In fact, Gehenna, the fire that was supposed to burn forever and ever with no end, is another place you can go to and visit today. And guess what? It's grass. It's not on fire. So it's just apocalyptic language, and it's funny how if you go to the Bible to interpret the Bible, it shows you that throughout the Bible. But then when we get to the apocalyptic language of like Revelations, we're like, oh, it must mean all this other stuff. But no, it was talking to them. It was talking to the 7 churches of that time and warning them that destruction was coming near and giving them a message for what they needed to do to stay strong and have hope. And shortly after that last book was written, 70 AD did happen. And guess what? The Christians didn't die. In fact, there's some reports that not one Christian that believed Jesus died because they got out like Jesus warned them to. But the Jews were burned to the ground. If you go look at the 70 AD destruction of Jerusalem, horrible, horrible things happened. And the Christians needed encouragement in that time because they were being persecuted by the Jews and the Romans. Even the one they said that would come for a short time, he was like Nero. That was Nero. He was there for a short time before he died. And he would do horrible things like have Christians on crosses burning in his garden for light. There's just horrible things. And even the belief in demons was not originally Jewish. It came from the Romans because they had adopted a lot of their beliefs. And the Romans had some pretty horrific beliefs. They used to believe that demons, came in through the woohoo down there, and they would do horrible things to women in that respect that would make these women crazy. But, it would break the mind in a way to go through some of the horrible things that people went through because of their beliefs in that time. But if you think about it, a lot of us are now awake enough to know that we all have access to infinite wisdom, to infinite source, that we could tap into anything. Like any spirit of beautiful musician or artist or the wisdom of an inventor or whatever. It's like internet without restrictions. If we knew that, if we practiced that, we could tap into the inspiration of any of these things on the other side and have wisdom and insight and foresight and receive from that side, or it's the other side of the veil, or whatever you want to call it. And I strongly believe that these people who had this crazy stuff happen to them, who believed themselves that something would enter them and take over and give messages, were just allowing things to come to them that they weren't allowing before. But it was also coming through their filters, right? So they were receiving energy and messages and then trying to put it into words to portray a message. And often it was skewed and mixed with their filters. So nowadays you get a lot more loving messages and stuff from the other side because people aren't doing it from fearful beliefs. They strongly believe that people are wonderful and good and beautiful on the other side and free and not full of fear, but in love. And so when they get messages, it portrays that. But if you're a person who like starts to receive something from the other side and you're scared of it and you're told it's like demons, and you start feeling energy and you start feeling like, or you think, I'm receiving a message from God, and this God is this schizophrenic maniac who's love and anger and all these kind of things, and you start getting this energy, you're not just interpreting the energy, but you're interpreting it through your filters, through your fears, through your beliefs. And so, of course, a lot of these messages can come out skewed, and mixed, very mixed, right? Um, yeah. And when I'm listening for a message, I always remember. Now it's just automatic, but I was always remembering that, like, if it's not life-giving, if it's not loving, if it doesn't make this person feel hope, doesn't make this person feel loved, doesn't feel like an answer, doesn't feel like something they already know because it's already in alignment with their highest self, as something they've been avoiding or denying or whatever, then I'm not done listening yet. I'm just getting information, but I don't have the message. So you can get information. Let's say that you get information like somebody has cancer. I'm not going to be like, hey, you have cancer, because our thoughts are super powerful. And like, I would ever want to plant that in somebody's head. Like, come on. That is not of God. It could be giving us a sense. We could be feeling their energy. We could be feeling that something's off in their body. We could be feeling that they may have cancer. But the message that God wants us to receive after that is the answer. Hey, you've been stuck in a situation for a long time that has been keeping your body in stress. And I think you know that. Kind of picking up on this. And Source just wants you to know that Source loves you and has your back in doing what you know you need to do. Or I feel like you've been like feeling this urge inside of you to be eating differently lately. And it's been really strong. Like, I feel like Source has really been like putting this energy towards you, and you've been feeling it, but you've been denying it. And it's something that you want. And Source just wants to encourage you that, you know, when you move in alignment with this desire, that it's going to back you up, that you know this is something you need to do, that your body's going to start feeling better. You already know the answer. I'm just here to confirm it, right? It's opening them up to what they already know. It's opening them up to what Source has already been trying to get to them, because Source would use me to just continue to help get across to them what Source and their highest self has already been trying to get across to them, right? No fear. We may be able to feel energy and know where it's going, that it's not going somewhere good. But my job is to relay the answer to that they kind of already know inside. Maybe they've felt it and heard it and know it, but they don't really know it. Maybe they're just not sure. Maybe they've just been doubting themselves. Maybe they've been talking themselves out of it. Maybe they've been like, yeah, but then this and that, and I don't know, and I'm so confused, and it just doesn't work, and da da da. And when they get that message from Source that, yeah, this is the way you're supposed to go, it just like breaks something in them that's afraid, so that they can move forward. That is a message from Source. So I always say, if you're just on the part where you're getting all the negative stuff, it just means you're not done listening yet. So don't speak it yet. Just keep listening. Just keep listening. Let Source break your heart. Let Source give you a message that is from love, that will change their life. Often when I continue to observe, my heart does break, because I can feel the contrast between their highest selves and them holding themselves out of alignment with it, and the pain and dis-ease and discomfort in that. And that's our job as people who give a message. I believe. And even if you're getting a message from someone who's maybe passed away on the other side, still no fear, because they are part of Source now. They are pure energy. They don't have, like, fear exists in the body, right? I have fear here because I don't want my body to suffer, and I don't want my children's bodies to suffer. It's all our bodies, though, right? I don't want to experience pain. I don't want to experience suffering. I don't want to experience starvation. I don't want to experience freezing to death or burning or, like, whatever, an attack. We're wired, we're in these bodies to experience the illusion of separateness, to experience an aspect of Source that we wanted to experience to help expand ourselves and the collective, therefore the collective, right? And so, like, everything exists here, even that thing they try to say about you're gonna be punished in the afterlife and burned forever and blah blah. It's like, that's still trying to put forth a fleshly fear, because if I don't have flesh, like, I don't care about fire, right? If I don't have any physical substance, whatever, I can go through fire, I can go through water, I can go through a wall, like, I'm just am. Like, it doesn't even make any sense, right? It doesn't if you think about it. Fear is here. Fear is here, it's not on the other side. And on the other side, yes, they want to push us towards our expansion, towards what we want, towards what's in alignment with our highest self, with our mission, with our reason for being here. Yes, they want to, and they use energy, and they use that energy to inspire us towards what will help us go forward and expand and grow and all that stuff. But they're not fear. Fear is us. Fear is us. Maybe we're feeling that energy and we're resisting it, and that feels like shit, right? How much that we resist starts out small, and just a little bit of, oh, that's okay. Oh, I don't need to do that. Oh, I need to focus on this instead because I'm afraid of this. Oh, I need, like, start small, it gets big, and eventually we can get sick, whether that's mentally sick, physically sick, our life can become sick, right? We can become feeling hopeless, stuck, not knowing how we got here, not knowing how to get out. And so really learning that those inspirations, those things that feel good, those things that, like, light us up, like that idea, like that desire, like, all of that is energy that's trying to inspire us towards an action. Because even if we don't know how to get to our dreams and our desires, Source and those who love us on the other side do know how to get us there. And they're trying to inspire us through the little things. And when we learn to listen to those, we can start to move in the direction we're supposed to be. Doors can open that wouldn't be open if we didn't go there. Opportunities can come up. Revelations can happen that can move us forward. And so it's really important to continue to be sensitive to that energy on the other side. For ourselves and for each other, right? Because we pick each other in this lifetime as well to help move us forward, and sometimes the other person might also be in so much resistance that they become unhealthy for us. and something in us is telling us that this isn't good. And we need to have the courage to, I don't even say we ever have to like be mean or cut people off or whatever, but in continuing to be faithful to our highest selves and move towards the inspirations and love and what we know inside, we may very well lose people along the way. But most of the time, if you're truly doing this right, those people will come to what they need from your relationship as well. And that's any relationship with a grandpa, relationship with a friend, relationship with a lover. And isn't that what we all come here, like, isn't that this ultimate struggle in the end is, you know, that difference between loving somebody out of fear and loving somebody out of love and faith. And that looks really different. Like, I could be trying to do lots of things for somebody because I really want them to know that I love them. And I could be sacrificing a lot of my own things because I don't want to lose somebody and I want them to know that they're loved and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, sacrificing what I know I need to do for myself and what I know I need to be doing, or leaving my desires and inspirations behind. And doing that, anytime we do that, it's out of fear, right? And so love that's in alignment is where we're constantly listening to ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're not ever going to not sacrifice. Like sometimes the inspiration may be put your work down and go spend time with your kids, right? Stop doing that thing you want to do and go be with this person that you love. Because as much as you want this thing, you also want this thing. But in fear, you're thinking you have to choose one or the other. So it could go that way too, right? So, yes, all of this is really important. Like, really getting in tune with our higher selves, and meditation is so important because our brains and bodies are wired by this world for survival. And when we're young, we could be wired to some really unhealthy things. We could think that we have to do certain things for love, or love looks a certain way, or whatever we learned in childhood. And we can be wired to certain things, different fears, because our brains and our bodies are here to keep us alive in the flesh, right? So whatever we're wired to when we're young, especially before the age of 7, we're wired that way to survive, because we all have basic needs. We need love, we need nurturing, we need food and shelter, we need touch, safe touch, we need to be heard, we need to hear and learn, we need to be inspired, we need to feel like we're inspiring. We all have basic needs, and they're not always great when we're young. They're not always healthy, and we have to figure out how to get those things, and we don't always learn how to get them in healthy ways. So we get this wiring, and we continue that wiring and healthy ways to get love and receive love and feel safe into our adulthood. And this is why meditation is so important, because it helps us. One, it teaches us to recognize our thoughts without being them. So if we can silence ourselves and become the observer of all the thoughts, all the wiring, all the programming, all the autopilots going on in our head, then we've just gained control that we didn't have before. We were just running off autopilot. We were just thinking this was it. Continually creating this reality in circles and never getting anywhere because we're just think that our brains are us. Our programming is us. Our autopilot thoughts are us. And they're not. They're an organ that's been wired, a tape recorder that has been recorded on, that is on repeat, never endingly, until we recognize it so that we can begin to create a new record until that one fades away. Some people explain it like snow on the brain as just a way to take it in. So you have snow on the brain and you're skiing or sledding down these same paths over and over and over and over and over again. And those paths get deep and worn in and packed down, and they just become autopilot, 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 right? And as we become aware of those autopilots, we can consciously start to try and choose a different thought, consciously try to choose a different belief, and it's not easy at first because even though we're working on those, we can go back to our autopilot. But the more we do it, the more we're wearing in a new path. And the less we're using the old one, what happens? The old one will become more filled with snow. The new one will become more worn in and autopilot. So as you're on this journey, don't beat yourself up if you go back to old things that are not great. And don't stop and don't give up. Think of it like a train. If you have a train and you have a whole bunch of engines on this side of the train and you are putting these negative engines, that train is going fast. If you think that one day you're just going to slam on the brakes to all those engines that you put on there and be okay without a huge crash, that's not realistic. What is realistic is you're going one way you don't want to go, and one day at a time you put an engine on the other side of the train, and another engine on the other side of the train, and another engine on the other side of the train, and you can feel this, and then you go this way, and then you come, and then you go that way, and then you come a little bit harder, and you go that way, and then you keep going until one day you're going the other way. But you don't beat yourself up for not being there right away. Okay, that's important because many of us lose the battle right there. Right there. We're like, I know all this shit. I do my affirmations, blah, 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 and yet I still went that way. Like, what the frick? I'm still doing this thing I hate. I'm still doing this thing that sabotages me. I'm still doing this thing I know is, like, not good, but I don't have any other answers, and I'm like, dude, your only job is to not quit. It's just to keep recognizing it, which is a huge step. Huge. Like one of the biggest ones you can take. And then the next step is to just keep putting engines on the other side of the train. Keep putting a new pathway of thought into your brain over and over and over. Just keep going because eventually it's going to click. And you're not going to have some big revelation. Just one day you might realize, wow, I haven't thought that thought in a long time. Wow, I haven't done that thing in a long time. I haven't even thought about it. It's not going to be a big moment. It's going to be one day you're going to realize, wow, I haven't even paid attention to that old thought in a long time. I've been so much in just this new direction lately that I didn't even notice that I stopped doing the old direction. That's how it works. That's how it works. That's reality. That's realistic. I feel like I went off on a rabbit trail. I am very neurodivergent in a lot of ways. I have severe complex PTSD, including brain damage, but I also know the transformative power of the brain. So I accept and I don't accept. which is all fine to do all at the same time. I have ADHD, I have slight autism, I have all this kind of stuff going on. And so I can go all over the place, and I love me as I am, because the more I do that, the more I am just an infinite child and loving this life and playing, because beating ourselves up sets us back. Okay? When we beat ourselves up, we're making a path on the wrong track, right? Wearing in that trail. Now, it's so important not to beat ourselves up and shame ourselves and give up on ourselves, because that's what sets us back. And to avoid negative people who only see the negative in you when you're trying to move forward is also really important. And to try and help yourself receive from those who are encouraging you, those who are speaking positive things over you, those who are being kind. Even though, as somebody who's always had negative voices in their life and then in their mind their whole life, when someone pays you a positive comment, you can feel like, yeah, right. Like, whatever. Like, what do you want? Like, that's such bullshit. Like, if you only knew the real me. Like, just, I know all of the voices. Well, so, yeah, so just trying to really, like, breathe and relax your body when you receive comments like that. And then remind yourself. And if somebody is, like, constantly negative to you, you should be doing this, what's wrong with you, blah, 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 blah. They're just, like, reinforcing all of the voices you already have in your head. And trust me, people, if you're one of those people, when you tell somebody something obvious, they already know. They're already beating themselves up for it. They're already, like, pissed about it. They're already, like, hate themselves for it. They're already stressed out. And you telling them isn't gonna be like, oh, I didn't realize I should be doing that thing. Wow, thank you so much for telling me. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So if you understand the importance of building a new path in a person's brain to help change them, that is what helps to transform a person, not reinforcing the negative programming in their brains already, but reinforcing the ones that you want to build. If you want to see something in someone, you need to build those paths. If you want to see somebody be more brave, you need to build the paths in their brain that tell them that they're brave, that they're getting braver, and pointing out the places that they can see it. Because when you have negative programming, you're the last person to see anything progressive that you've done. It's true. I really appreciate friends in my life and people in my life who, when I'm like, I'm so horrible and this and that, and I still didn't get here with this and blah, blah, and they're like, yeah, but look what you did do this week, right? Wow, look how much you want to do this. That's amazing. You didn't even think of this before. Look at what you did do. Even if it wasn't maybe what you wanted to do, look at the amazing things you did accomplish. Like, these are the types of people you need in your life to get your brain off that negative track and start to create a new person in you. Wow, look what I did do. I'm not a horrible person. Look what I did do means look what I can do. And you start to believe in yourself a little bit more. Do you see how that works? Like, I feel like I'm over-explaining it, but I know that when I was really stuck, I needed it over-explained. So if it feels over-explained, then maybe it's for somebody who just isn't quite catching it and really needs to get it. So yeah, don't beat people up, because when you do that, when you put negative on somebody, you're creating more of the person that you're frustrated with, that that you don't want to see anymore. And when you build positive things in a person, you're creating more of what you want to see. It is okay that if somebody is hurting you and they're not aware of themselves, that you use your voice and you tell someone how they're affecting you. Not necessarily what's wrong with them, but just helping someone to see themselves. But always reinforce that with positivity if you can, right? Reinforce it with what you do know about them that's good. Because again, just like in the meditation example, we want to become aware of what we're doing that creates repeat things in our lives that we don't want. Awareness is a part of that. You can't just ignore it. I cannot stand people who just bypass shit and ignore all the shit that they do because they're just so set on being positive only. That is not what I am saying, okay? There's two parts. One is becoming aware of yourself. You need to become aware of the programming, of the patterns, of the things that are creating over and over again the same things in your life that you're kind of sick of and keeping you from getting where you want to go. But then the second part is reinforcing new programming that can help you get to new things, right? So once you recognize it, start feeding the other side. And when it pops up, recognize it, feed the new path, right? Feed the right wolf. Well, you know all these examples, right? So, yeah. I think you guys know what I'm saying. And the more that we realize God is love, the more, it says 8:08 on my clock right now, the more we're an open vessel for love. The more we realize we're unconditionally loved, right? That we're never too far off our path, because resistance takes a lot more work than flow. Remember that. We may feel like we're in the shithole. We may feel like we're too far gone, okay? Because we've resisted so long. We've been stuck for so long. We don't know how to get to where we want to be. It just feels hopeless. Just remember this. Resistance takes a lot more work than flow. And so we may not try to get into that state of flow because it feels hopeless or it feels like it would take forever. But I'm telling you that alignment does not take forever. You got to think of source, which is love, which is that life-giving energy, as water. If you think of it like water, water just flows. Okay? It flows. When we resist, we're sticking boulders in the water. We're trying to stand in the water. We're trying to build walls against the water. And that water is hitting up against our resistance because it never stops being water. It never stops flowing. Source never stops loving us, right? And it sucks and it hurts and it's uncomfortable and it's messy and it's blocking our life-giving energy. And it could start to feel so awful that we can feel hopeless. But when we start to remove the boulders and take down the wall and whatever, when we start to find ways to be in alignment instead of resistance, how fast do you think that water flows? Right? So don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. Just figure out, how do I remove one more of these bricks, one more of these blocks, one more of these walls? Lift one heel up that's been dug into the ground, whatever it is, right? How do I just Another example of Abraham Hicks is like, he's like, we're like the cork. And when you push the cork under the water, it naturally just wants to float to the top. It wants to float. It just wants to, right? It takes a lot more work for us to like push and hold and put weight on and keep that cork pushed under the water than it is to like let go and bob to the surface, come to the surface, right? So never ever think that it's too late. You got to figure out, you got to become aware of, and I'm not saying aware of all the things we have to beat ourselves up for. I'm saying aware of, where are we resisting love? Where are we resisting faith in source that we're loved? Where are we doing things out of fear and not out of love? A great example I have, and there's two sides to everything, right? So you have to be really careful, because you can think you're doing something out of love and it's actually out of fear. So my example that I learned was with food. Many years ago now. Oh my gosh, like 18 years ago or so. A whole bunch of health stuff happened in my family. Family members were getting cancer. We were told to say our last goodbyes to them. I wound up getting a tumor. I wound up having a miscarriage. I wound up having all these health problems, and my family was having all these health problems. And I had a child with a jab injury, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is going on here? You just grow up thinking all this stuff is normal and what you have to do, and all of a sudden everybody's falling apart. And oh my gosh, my OCD brain, learning autistic obsessive brain, and my hyper focus ADHD and whatever just went nuts into researching health like crazy. Like, I neglected every part of my life to research like a freaking nutcase. Like, I barely ever slept at night because I was so desperate for answers. I was researching everything about the truth around health, around cancer, around jabs, around everything. I went nuts for probably a few years, nonstop. And I became, it was good. All that information was amazing. And in that, I learned a lesson that the simpler it gets and the more natural it gets, the closer you get to truth. So it could start out super complicated, right? So much to learn, so much to figure out, so much to undo, blah, blah, blah. And then you realize, wow, it's just like sleep well and eat living food and get sunlight and move your body, and right, like, and you realize that the simpler it is, the closer you get to truth, and then the truth sets you free, right? But in that time period, right, in that time period, I became obsessed about food and vitamins, and I was like doing everything out of fear, right? I need to take this vitamin because I don't want to get cancer. I can't eat this food because I don't want to get cancer. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to da 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 da. I was doing all this stuff out of fear, and I kept finding myself getting better and then getting sicker, and like sicker and better and sicker. And I found out, like, I started having food dysphoria. I think I'm saying that right. Where I was eating so little because I was having a problem eating if it wasn't perfect. I struggled with being able to eat anything if it wasn't perfect. And what happened is I wound up getting sicker because I started stressing out my adrenal glands like crazy because my body wasn't getting what it needed. And I was way too stressed about everything all the time. And at some point in this journey, I got the revelation of like, wow, I'm doing this out of fear. So it's like, not love. I could think it's love. I'm doing it because I love myself. I don't want myself to get sick. I don't want myself to get cancer. Like all these fears. I'm doing it because I love myself, right? But it's really out of fear. Not out of faith, not out of trusting God. That's a different thing. But I was doing it out of fear instead of out of love, right? So I had to really start asking myself, am I taking this vitamin out of fear? Or am I taking this because I love myself and it feels good to feel good? I love how I feel when I take this. It's like, it brings me joy. Like, I take this and I'm happy, right? Am I not eating this out of fear? Or am I not eating this because I love the way I feel when I stopped eating this? Like, it's subtle, but there's two sides to every coin, right? That subtleness isn't everything. Just checking our hearts, checking our autopilots, our brains. Am I doing this out of fear? Is there a base here of fear, or is it love? Does it feel easy? Does it feel natural? Does it just feel like I do it because this feels good, right? And in a good way. Like, going into that topic too, another example I have is rape. And sorry if that's triggering for anybody. I grew up in a life born into severe sexual abuse, and I get it. Until it got found out and went to court when I was 8 years old. I was severely traumatized as a baby and child, and my go-to was to black out, lose consciousness to survive, and I wound up having a lot of brain damage and memory loss and a whole whack of problems, which became part of my journey today. So I apologize if this is triggering, but this is a good example to even think about, okay? If somebody takes that sexual action with somebody, takes it, okay, in whatever means, you could look at that and say, I'm bringing this up because you could look at it and say, well, that person wanted, that person was following their body's desire, right? They're like, oh, well, if you say just like, follow what makes you happy, follow your desires, then, somebody might just go out and like do something horrible to somebody. Okay, if you dig deep though, that is also out of fear, right? You only ever have to harm or take from another person if you are fearing, if you believe that you're lacking or that you will forever be lacking. Like, maybe if somebody takes sexually from another person, maybe they believe that they can't have it in love and fell asleep. maybe they believe they have to take it for some reason. Because why would you take it? Why would you take it if you felt like, I can have abundant love with somebody? I can have a fulfilling relationship with another person where these needs are satisfied. Why would you take it? Why would you take anything? Unless you believe something that was based in fear. If you think about it, you can really break that down, right? People take things if they're afraid there's no other way to get it. That's out of fear. That's out of a lack mindset. That's out of a fear mindset. You need to grab some water. Right? That's out of a scarcity mindset. That somebody's so far gone in their fears that they've justified them and force their brain to believe that they're okay with something that they're really not. Because they've disconnected themselves so far from their heart, so far from source, from love, from their highest selves, to be able to do something like that, right? My prayer is that nobody would ever be able to disconnect themselves that far to be able to do something like that. But unfortunately, there are people that lost. And that's why the message of love, of source love, this kind of message really needs to get out there, because hope, love produces hope, and love and hope heal the world, right? These people need healing. If you think about it, if there's somebody who does these horrible things, yeah, we may need to like stop them from being able to hurt other people. But the most beautiful and ultimate justice would be their return to love. Because those people who are that far gone, that were that lost, if they had an awakening of love, if they could come back despite all the horrible torment and guilt and stuff they'd have to face in order to come back to their heart, all the pain and realizing what they did, facing what they did, facing the pain that they caused somebody, facing what they created in this, the chaos they made in this world, if they had to like face that, if they were willing to come back to their heart, which is really hard because it means you have to feel that. A lot of people stay in those horrible places because it's too hard for them to call a spade, to like recognize what they did, to face it, to really face it and feel it, and label it as bad or out of alignment, as something that caused harm to another person that's gonna spread in the world. Maybe not, but often in some way or another. I mean, I didn't go on to like hurt people, but it definitely fucked me up. It definitely messes with my life to this day. Right? My anxiety, all that stuff, like, hurt, unfortunately, bears rotten fruit. Right? You know a man by their fruit. So, but what I was getting at is, if there is ever a person who's that far gone, maybe they murdered someone, maybe they beat someone, maybe they raped them, maybe whatever, right? If a person that far gone, that far separated from source, from truth, from their highest selves, from knowing that any kind of love, for them to come back is so huge. For them to like allow themselves to feel all that pain, to feel all that lostness, that hopelessness, to feel all the extremes of what they believed in order to make them be able to do something like that, to feel that and to challenge it, and then to even realize that, wow, I really was loved. I didn't need to do that. I was stupid to do that. How much that would break, destroy that person. It would like burst open their heart inside. And not everybody can be rehabilitated, but those who truly come to that revelation from a hard place, from a hard life, from doing horrible things, who are willing to look at those horrible things and recognize them and name them and say that they want something different, those people often become so broken by love that they become the most radical advocates for love in the world. Like, they're willing to give their life for somebody else to know the message of love. Like, that's powerful, right? I never write anyone off. Yes, we need to stop people from hurting other people. Yes, we have to pray to God that they're going to see what's wrong and what they're doing. We pray for that. But I never write them off. I still believe love can be resisted. But you know what? Enough love is poured, and it can break the wall, the tower, the grand castle that they built in that flowing water to try and block it. And when that happens, these people are all new people. Like, they built such a grandiose thing, and when that comes shattering down, right? They are like an ultimate open vessel for truth. Because it set them free so wildly that they're wildly out there to love and want other people to know the message too. Right? And the gospel is the good news that God is love. That's the good news. That's the good news, that when we can really grasp that, and it takes time, you can say you believe it, but then again, you have to look at the question, if I believed it, would I be doing this? Would I make this decision? Would I think like this? Would I? And nobody fully believes it. I mean, if we fully believe the extent of how much we are loved and how powerful that is in our lives, oh, would we even cease to exist being humans anymore in this flesh? Right? Jesus went pretty far. He had pretty big revelation. And you don't always have to be a horrible person to get that revelation. There's ways to get it. Sometimes radical grace is how you get it. Sometimes being so angry at somebody that God wants to love is exactly like what awakens that love in you too. It can go either way, right? It can go all kinds of ways, because everything leads back to God. Everything leads back to love. Everything leads back to truth that sets us free. Everything leads back to that life-giving energy. Everything leads back to source and what source is. And source just is, right? Can't be anything else but energy, the energy that gives us life. So everything in this journey here leads us back to that. And our whole point in being here is to expand and become and expand the whole. And just like in the Bible, something old was falling away, which was that old religious system that was enslaving the people. And the people were presented with the new that was becoming, that was unfolding, that was expanding. And they had a choice to cling to the old. And many of them perished with the old, clinging to it, or to move into the new. And it was a rocky transition. Very rocky, right? A lot of those Christians were like very much so not accepted. There was a lot of resistance against the love that was trying to come through, that was trying to come in, right? Even the Jews themselves who believed Jesus were trying to bring in old things from the old religion because they were afraid, because they didn't fully have faith, and right? And all of that had to be broken open. And it's just, that is a good lesson. That is a good lesson even for today, that as old things pass away, as lies about the love of God are unveiled and the truth is revealed, we have a choice to go into the truth or stay stuck in the fears, in the old enslaving ways, right? I like to use the jab as an example. A jab is not in alignment with nature. It's not in alignment with what is natural. It is not in alignment with faith. It is not in alignment with love. It's something we do because we're afraid, right? And I don't like to do things that are pushed on me out of fear because it's not in alignment. That's one example. That's why that's my own personal choice, which I'm very glad for because I'm also very knowledgeable in the area and know enough and I've done enough research and listened to enough doctors and scientists and know that that was not a good choice, even though I already knew it from the beginning because my core belief is that was being pushed by fear, and fear is not love. Fear is not faith. Fear is not trusting source. Right? So, anyways, I have some basic rules in my life, and that's being in alignment with our higher selves. What would we do if we knew God loved us or source loved us, whatever you like to say, and is it in alignment with nature and what's natural? Those are my rules. That's what I like to try and bring every thought captive into for examination and anything that's thrown at me as well, right? I don't know if I lost any subject here that I was on. But yeah, true restoration is somebody restored back to the truth, somebody restored back to love. That's true justice, right? True justice will never be the death and the cutting off of life from any person, but the awakening of that person's truth that sets them free so that they can become a catalyst for expansion. That, I think, is the justice of God. And the mercy of God, right? The only thing God wants to destroy is the things that are blocking us from the best for us. That's it. And God does that through love. And we resist it. And we are in dis-ease of that with that resistance until it becomes so uncomfortable that our walls break, our stones bust, our resistance can't resist anymore, and we can come to a point, there's a point there as well where we can lose our physical bodies. So we can be in resistance to the point where we pass on to the other side because it's the only way we know how to release the resistance and return back to love. We can resist until it's the end of our life. But it's still another way to release the resistance. And I'm never encouraging that, but I'm telling you, we always go back to source. We always go back to love. But we want to be here. And so, choose to be here. Choose to have that revelation here and now. Because heaven is here on earth. It's not just something there. We can feel here. We can touch, we can taste, we can smell. We can feel the sun on our face and know that we're loved, that we're provided for. We can look at the green outside and know that we're provided for. And we can live in hell here, and we can live in bliss in heaven here. And the goal is to live in heaven so that we can spread it, so that we can spread the expansion, we can live the expansion. So I hope you all find the courage to do that. I hope that if you're in the darkest place of your life, that you have faith, that maybe you begin to let go of having to know how, and just start with a little bit of faith. That I don't know how, but I'm gonna let having to know how go, and just trust that I'm loved. That could be a first step. And so, whatever your first step is, I just want you to know that I'm proud of you. You need to let go of perfection, because we're human. And if we weren't human, would love exist? If we weren't having this experience, would love be needed? Would we be able to love? Would we be able to receive love? It's all part of the human experience. So just breathe, relax a little. Try to meditate. It can be really hard at first, but it is an organ. Your brain is an organ, and it can be trained. And it's not going to happen like that. It takes time, it takes repeating, until your brain understands that meditation time is a time to be silent. And the more silent we can become, it starts with awareness of our thoughts, realizing they're not us, not taking them on, not feeling them, but observing them, and letting them go by like a cloud. Some people say, like, if you have a thought, picture it like a cloud and allow it to float by, and then continue to focus on the sound in your room that you're listening to, or your breath, or whatever it is, silence, right? Until you can really get the hang of that, and it becomes easier. Because what happens is when we can begin to clear our mind of all the autopilot programming going on, we can open ourselves up more to the inspirations that want to come in from source, instead of just our programming leading the way all the time. So, anyways, I didn't get very far in my letter, but that's okay. This, I think, was good. It went where it needed to go. Maybe I'll get to the second paragraph in my really long letter at another time, and we'll go off in a whole other direction. But whatever, it inspired this conversation. I think it was good. I love you guys. Sending you all the love that I have, and I'm praying you'll open all the love that Source has, which is infinite, and that you'll breathe a little and relax and just let some of that in. Okay, love you guys. Bye.